When you have more than 370 million people under 25, you'd expect noise, marches, movements, and megaphones demanding change. Yet in India, the world's largest democracy, its youngest generation, Gen Z, has chosen something else: silence. They are informed, online, and restless. But when it comes to the streets, they are watching from the sidelines. The question is, why? India's Gen Z is vast, nearly a quarter of the country's 1.4 billion population. These are young people born roughly between 1997 and 2012, growing up in a digital era where the world fits inside their smartphones. With affordable internet and some of the cheapest mobile data rates on the planet, they're plugged into global debates on inequality, corruption, climate, and identity. But despite being hyper-aware, this generation rarely mobilizes. They scroll through protest footage from Bangladesh, Nepal, Indonesia, and Madagascar, but at home, public dissent feels risky. The fear of being branded anti-national, increasing political polarization, economic precarity, and deep social divisions all have subdued their activism. Compare this to neighboring countries. In Nepal, youth-led protests recently brought down a government in just 48 hours. In Madagascar, young demonstrators forced the president to resign. Across Indonesia, students flooded the streets over rising living costs and corruption, pushing the government to roll back key policies. In Bangladesh, frustration over job quotas and corruption culminated in a full regime change. These movements were fast, decentralized, and coordinated through encrypted apps, hallmarks of Gen Z's digital organizing power. India hasn't been completely quiet. In September 2025, the disputed Himalayan region of Ladakh saw violent clashes between police and protesters demanding full statehood. The unrest, largely youth-driven, was described by climate activist Sonam Wangchuk as evidence of Gen Z's frenzy, long-suppressed anger finally surfacing. National politics echoed that sentiment when Rahul Gandhi, leader of the opposition Congress Party, posted on X that Gen Z youth will prevent voter fraud and save the constitution, referencing alleged electoral irregularities in Karnataka. Meanwhile, Delhi's police, wary after seeing Nepal's youth uprising, reportedly began preparing contingency plans for possible youth-led demonstrations in India's capital. Online debates intensified. Some young Indians urged similar protests at home, while others warned of chaos and manipulation. Fact-checking outlet Boom Live described it as an eish online battling within Gen Z itself, one side seeing global youth uprisings as justified resistance, the other fearing they were foreign-funded or destabilizing. From the anti-Indira Gandhi protests of the 1970s to the campus movements of the 2010s, India has a long history of youth activism. But experts believe today's Gen Z is unlikely to replicate Nepal or Bangladesh's revolts. The reason lies in fragmentation. India's youth may share common frustrations: unemployment, corruption, and inequality, but their anger is localized. Regional, linguistic, caste, and class identities divide them. That diversity, both a strength and a weakness, explains why Sudhanshu Kaushik of the Center for Youth Policy calls India an Ihwar outlier when it comes to Gen Z revolutions. Age is not the only differentiator, he notes. Young people in India are deeply tied to regional, linguistic, and caste identities. If a Gen Z uprising ever happens, whose would it be? Dalit, urban, or Tamil youth? The issues that mobilize them differ sharply. Urban youth push for jobs and better infrastructure. Dalit youth, historically marginalized, demand social justice and dignity, and Tamil youth protest for linguistic and regional rights. Even within upper caste communities, contradictions persist. In Gujarat and Haryana, young upper caste groups have taken to the streets for increased affirmative action, the same policy that others oppose. Meanwhile, in Tamil Nadu, protests erupted over a court ban on a traditional bull taming sport. Each cause burns bright but briefly, never merging into a unified national fire. Then there's fear, a uniquely Indian deterrent. In recent years, dissent has often been labeled anti-national. The phrase, amplified by politicians and TV anchors, carries real consequences: social ostracism, online trolling, or even arrest. India's universities, once the breeding grounds of rebellion, have also changed. Campuses like Jawaharlal Nehru University and Delhi University, which once echoed with slogans, now face tighter controls. Permissions for gatherings are harder to get. Student unions have weakened. The government, on its part, insists it is empowering youth, not silencing them. Flagship schemes like Startup India, Digital India, and Skill India aim to channel young energy into entrepreneurship. But for many, the focus on stability and employment overshadows political expression. Economic anxiety looms large. While India's GDP growth hovers around 7%, one of the fastest globally, job creation hasn't kept pace. The Center for Monitoring Indian Economy reports youth unemployment around 23%, one of the highest among G20 nations. Many young people now seek jobs abroad. Migration applications to countries like Canada, the UAE, and Australia have surged by over 40% in the last 3 years. Even in politics, enthusiasm is waning. Only 38% of 18-year-olds registered to vote in the 2024 general elections, a steep drop compared to earlier decades. A Citizen Media survey found 29% of young Indians actively avoid political discussions altogether. Instead, identity, religious, cultural, and linguistic, often shapes their worldview more than ideology. This has benefited the ruling BJP, which continues to command strong youth support, around 40% in 2019, with only a marginal decline in 2024, according to CSDS Lokniti surveys. Yet, today's quiet Gen Z was shaped by the movements they grew up watching. As teenagers, they witnessed massive protests of the 2010s. Anna Hazar's anti-corruption movement, the 2012 Delhi gang rape protests, and later, the 2019 to 2020 student-led demonstrations against the Citizenship Amendment Act, CAA, and farm laws. Those were their formative years, and their caution now is rooted in what followed. In December 2019, protests at Jamia Millia Islamia and Aligarh Muslim University turned violent when police stormed campuses. Student leader Umar Khalid was later arrested and remains imprisoned, accused of inciting the 2020 Delhi riots, charges he denies. Globally, from the Arab Spring to Bangladesh's regime change, youth have proven they can upend systems. But sustaining change is harder. In India, the challenge isn't apathy, it's fragmentation. For now, India's Gen Z appears more watchful than rebellious, subdued yet far from disengaged. They debate politics on Reddit, rally for social causes online, and express dissent through memes, digital campaigns, and quiet resistance. Their revolution may not be in the streets, but in the servers. And perhaps that's where India's next awakening will begin. Not with a march, but with a message.